Hello and welcome back to the MMA India show. First things first, Akhilesh spoke to Artem Lobov just recently. He's going to be fighting Cup Swanson in April. And we're going to show you that interview. Well, actually, you're going to hear it because it was an audio interview. So you're going to hear that interview first, and then we will come back to you to talk about UFC Fight Night Fortaleza right now. Enjoy the interview.
Hello?
Hello, Artem.
Yeah, what's up, man?
Hey, all good. How are you doing, sir?
Very good, thank you.
All right. Is it a good time? Is it a good time to go ahead with the interview?
Yeah, all good, man. Go ahead. Straight to it.
All right, outstanding. So, firstly, Artem, I just wanted to get more details about your background because just so that the Indian fans can understand you better, can you give us a glimpse of your background and how you got into mixed martial arts?
Yeah, sure. Well, just quickly about my story, I guess. I was born in Russia, in a place called Nizhny Novgorod. When I was 14 years old, me and my parents immigrated to Argentina, Buenos Aires. We lived there for about 2 years, and then we moved to Dublin, Ireland. This is where I began training in martial arts. I was studying in the university at the time. It's called Dublin City University, DCU. I was doing business there, and I saw an advertisement on the wall saying, "Would you like to learn self-defense?" I went down to the gym to learn it, and fell in love with the sport straight away. And the rest of the day is history.
Right, but did you have a background in? Yeah, please go on. Sorry.
I had no background. In any kind of a martial arts. In fact, when I was a kid, I used to do ballroom dancing. I did it for about 5 years. So I only really started training martial arts when I was 21, and I had my first amateur fight when I was 24.
All right, and you also fought for Cage Warriors before making your way into the UFC. So can you tell us about the moment you got the call for the tryouts to get into the TUF house?
Yeah, well, to be honest, you don't really get a call. The tryout is something that you have to choose yourself to go to. You have to pay for it yourself. So I just saw an ad, it was my weight class. I saw that the trials are coming up for 155, and I just thought, right, let me book the flights and go over and see how it goes. And obviously, it went really well, especially given the fact that Conor was the coach. So of course that helped me get into the house.
Right. Now, your story is quite interesting during the TUF season because you were brought back by Conor McGregor and you went all the way to the finals. So how was your experience during your time in the TUF house?
Oh, I absolutely loved it. I had a great time in the house. I often hear people complain about, being in the house, but I thought it was absolutely great because you're in a very nice house. You have swimming pool, you have everything. You don't have to worry about any bills. You have no phone, so you don't even need to worry about any phone calls. And you just train and fight. And on top of everything, you also get paid for it. So it was a very good experience. I loved it. I fought 4 times in about 6 weeks.
Right.
And to be honest, if I could live in that house forever, I would.
Okay, because one of the biggest complaints that the fighters have is the fact that you're not allowed to talk to anyone from the outside world during your duration in the house. So was that something of an inconvenience for you? How did you find that part of the deal?
Yeah, that's obviously one of the drawbacks, but you're only doing it for 6 weeks, so it's not that bad. Just I treat it as a little holiday, a little break from the outside world. I truly enjoyed it.
Okay, and you were originally supposed to fight Saul Rogers in the finals, and then you had to face his replacement, Ryan Hall, who came in with an extensive background in jiu-jitsu. So what went through your mind before the fight?
Well, to be honest, I was really looking forward to my fight with Saul because that was going to be a rematch. Me and Saul have previously fought actually, and I only lost by a split decision, and it was in his hometown. So a lot of people thought that I won the fight, and he just got a hometown decision. So I was really looking, and for many years I tried to get a rematch. I was looking for him everywhere. I called him out all the time, but the fight never happened. So I thought that this is finally my chance for redemption. I was finally going to get the rematch that I wanted, but it wasn't meant to be. He was replaced by Ryan Hall, which was very unfortunate. And I'm sure you've seen the fight with Ryan Hall.
Right.
hard to call it a fight. I was very frustrated, and that I didn't get to give the fans a true show, because I felt that I made that season. I was the only guy to get a knockout, and not only I was the only guy to get a knockout, I got 3 knockouts.
Right.
So that was a very entertaining season, and it was very unfortunate that it ended the way it ended, with a very boring fight.
Right. So I also wanted to ask you, can you tell us about the conversation that happened between you and Dana White after the fight?
You mean after Ryan Hall fight?
Yeah.
I didn't even talk to Dana after that fight. I was so frustrated, and Dana was very frustrated too, because he wanted an exciting fight. Dana loves an exciting fight more than anyone else.
Right.
There's one thing that people forget about Dana. Before, being UFC president or anything else, he is a true martial arts fan. He's a true MMA fan. He loves a good fight. So he was very disappointed from many perspectives, as a fan to watch a boring fight, and as a businessman, because those kind of fights, they don't sell, they don't make money. So he was very frustrated, and so was I.
Right. Now, talking about you and Conor McGregor, you both go a long way back, and having him as the coach during the TF season, how helpful was he during the season itself and also during your UFC career so far?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's been very, very important in my career. I mean, without him, I wouldn't have been in the UFC. He is the guy that helped shine, the light on me. But, it is up to me to perform. It is up to me to fight. Sometimes, a lot of people, they like to say that, I'm there because of Conor, but they forget what I got from it. I'm still in a place where I have to fight, and I'm in a cage with another man that's trying to kill me, take my head off. And for me to succeed, I have to be first to kill him. And I think I've been doing pretty well so far. And now I've got the biggest fight of my life coming up, and I'm not going to let anyone down.
Right. So, we'll talk about Cup Swanson in just a minute. But, one of the things many people are interested in is the unique training sessions SPG Ireland incorporates, including the movement training with Airo Potar. So can you dwell a little on your training sessions and how your camp goes?
Yeah, obviously we do a lot of the traditional training as well that, a lot of other people do, the sparring and, the drilling, the jiu-jitsu, wrestling and boxing. But of course, we have some other elements, that we have added into our training just to help your body adapt, just to help, you don't want to be breaking down your body the whole time. Sometimes you need to listen to your body and take a break and do something else. But something else that also benefits your fighting, and movement has been one of those things, because everything is about movement in there, so you want to be able to move freely, you want to be able to move in all directions. You should not be limited to any patterns, So Ido Porta has been great, and he is probably one of the best movers on the planet, and training with him has helped a lot with my own game and with many others at Cerebral Gym.
All right, fantastic. Now, talking about your next fight with Cub Swanson, you and Cub have been going back and forth on social media, and you will be fighting him in April. So, Cub is coming off, one of the best fights in recent memory against Duo Choi. Why did you call out Cub Swanson, of all the people in the division? Why did you want to fight Cub Swanson in the first place?
I must say, I like Cub's style. I've been watching it for many years. He always brings it. He comes forward. He's aggressive, and he's going to give me the fight that I love. I love having a proper fight. I've taken on some of the best guys in Europe. I've never looked for an easy fight. I've taken on the best of the best, even though I've been told many times to cut my record. It is not a path I ever chose. I always went for the hardest road. And once again, now that I'm in the UFC, I'm not here to look for easy fights. I'm here to get the hardest fight possible. And he's one of those fights. So I'm very excited for the matchup.
Right, and now considering Swanson is one of the best fighters in the featherweight division, a win over him would propel you into the upper echelon, the top contention. So, what do you make of the stylistic matchup between you and Swanson?
I think this is a perfect stylistic matchup, and I think the fans are in for a treat. He likes to stand and throw down, and so do I. I feel I have a lot more power than he does, and if I connect, I hope we're able to wake him back up.
All right. And as you said, you were born in Russia and you traveled a bit before coming to Ireland. Now, while you were born in Russia, the Irish have accepted you as one of their own. So how did it feel to fight in front of them the last time around against Ishihara and get a victory?
It was unbelievable, as you said, the Irish have treated me really, really well. They've supported me from the very start. And I owe the good performance to my Irish fans, and I delivered just that in Dabas. It was a great night, it felt like my fight was the main event. I got incredible support once again, and it just was an unbelievable feeling and a dream come true for me.
Alright, fantastic. Now, a lot of talk right now is about your training partner and good friend Conor McGregor. Now, you sparred with him many times. So can you give us your thoughts on how a potential matchup between Conor would fare, in a boxing match against Floyd Mayweather, if it ever happens?
Yeah, for me, a lot of people can say I'm biased and this, but, I've given my predictions before. I was the one that said that, he would stop out there in the first minute. And at the time when I said it, everybody laughed at me, but, you've seen what happened. It only took him 13 seconds.
Right.
And I feel that given Floyd's age and his, judging by his last few performances, I feel that Conor would be the favorite in that fight. And I honestly can't see Mayweather going past the 6 rounds. I know a lot of people will not believe me. A lot of people will give me a lot of hate for that, but this is how I see the fight playing out.
All right. Now, finally, Artem, do you have any message for the Indian fans?
Absolutely, yeah. I've actually, being in Ireland, I've worked and with many Indian people, and I always found them, very smart and very friendly. I actually worked in Bank of America here in Ireland, and we had a big office in India, and so I dealt with them on a daily basis. So they seem like a very, very good people, very cultural people. And on top of that, I have also worked in an Indian restaurant before, and in fact, I was a tandoori chef.
Okay.
So Indian culture is very familiar to me, and I really enjoyed the culture and the food.
All right, and the last conversation that I had with Rajiv, we were talking about bringing some of the guys down to India, and your name was one of them. So, what would you think about coming down to India in the near future?
I would absolutely love to go to India. My mom was in India many years before, and she absolutely loved it. And I would also really like to visit that country. It's a great country, like I said. It's very diverse, very cultural place. So I would love to see it.
All right, outstanding. Thank you once again, Artem, for taking the time to talk to us. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I'll catch up with you again before your fight. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
And we're back, and we are talking UFC Fight Night Fortaleza, Brazil, which is happening this weekend. Brazil, 11th March, India, 12th March morning. Let me just check that date again. Yep. So, just so nobody gives us galis later about the dates. So the first fight we're going to talk about is Beth Correa versus Marion Renault. Now, Beth Correa is 10-2-0, Marion Renault is 7-2-0, and Beth Correa won her last fight over Jessica Ai. Before that, she had 2 losses, one to Rachel Pennington and a title fight loss to Ronda Rousey, in which she did come in saying a lot of things, but of course was knocked out in the very first round. One of Ronda Rousey's few knockouts by punches, if you can say standing. Now, Marion Renault's last fight was over Milana Dudeva. And she won that. Before that, she has 2 losses, Ashley Evans Smith and then to Holly Holm. And before that, she has a win over Jessica Andrade, who's now fighting for the title. So, very good pedigree, of course. So both are coming with the last 3 fights, 1 win and 2 losses. And I think both are going to be a little hungry to come back. Marion really hasn't had a title shot yet.
No.
Beth has. So they're going to be still, Beth is going to be hungry to come back. Marion, of course, would want to cement a win over Beth to kind of get her name into title contention. Beth, I saw of course, fight with Jessica Ai. It was a little contentious,
Right.
The decision. I wasn't too convinced. Maybe that's also because I'm a fan of Jessica Ai. But so maybe I'm not the right person to talk about that. I could be a little biased towards Jessica, though I shouldn't be. But it was contentious. Everybody thought so. What are your views on that fight?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about it after the fight
Yeah,
itself,
we did,
saying,
yeah.
we both thought Jessica did enough to actually get the nod, but it was Betch Correia that got the victory in the end. So, yeah, I mean, just because you brought it up, her fight against Ronda Rousey, I think that was the only fight in Ronda's career where people actually looked at Ronda Rousey and thought, wow, she could be a world-class striker.
Yeah.
Because against Betch Correia, Ronda looked like a world-class striker. No disrespect to Betch, but, just her striking was so bad at that point. And now she trains out of American Kickboxing Academy, and she's well-rounded, relatively. She has good jiu-jitsu. She has pretty okay striking. Not that good in the bantamweight division. You obviously have other very good strikers in the division, much more better than Betch Correia. But she's going to fight someone that is relatively new in the division, relatively new in the UFC. As you said, Renee, she lost her fight to Holly Holm, to a Holm that wasn't that good even at that point, because her fight, I thought, it was just all over the place. Holm wasn't technically as sound as she is now. And she has also lost to Ashley Evans-Smith, who is a pretty good, decent striker. So going into this fight, it's going to be interesting because Betch has aggressiveness that Renault doesn't, and technically, if you look at both their jiu-jitsu, that I think would make all the difference because both aren't that well known for their striking. So I think it'll eventually come down to who's better on the ground. Both have really good Brazilian jiu-jitsu. But, just because of, what people expect from Betch Correia at this point, I think, this will be a close fight. I think Betch Correia might nudge with decision victory.
Now, do you remember the Marion's victory win over Jessica Andrade?
That was a long time ago, and Jessica at that point, was it at 135?
I don't know, I'm asking you.
So I think it was at 35.
Okay.
So she went down drastically to 115, Jessica. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, both different worlds when you're fighting in two different divisions. But yeah, as I said, it's pretty close to call.
Okay, so moving on to the next fight. Edson Barboza, who's 18-4-0, and Benail Dariush, 14-2-0 now. Edson Barboza is, of course, a brilliant fighter. He's got the best kicking in the game, widely acknowledged, and he's always there. He's always there, but just not into title contention yet. Now, right. I still don't know whether a win over Benail Dariush would put him there, but he would put him a step closer. But he does have an amazing, stand-up game. I mean, his game, of course, revolves around his kicking because it's so fast. It's like a whiplash almost. Now right. He's got wins over Gilbert Melendez and Anthony Pettis. Of course, Anthony Pettis being an ex-champ, and of course he has a loss to Tony Ferguson before that.
Right.
Which was an amazing fight. Again, I saw that fight. And of course, Tony Ferguson has taken his game to a whole different level. I think that fight would have only hardened Edson and shown him what he has to work on. And of course, the wins over Anthony Pettis and Gilbert Melendez would have, given him a lot of confidence because, especially since Anthony Pettis has a great kicking game as well. Now, right. Benail Dariush has a win over Rashid Magomedov and James Vick, and before that a loss to Michael Chiesa, and he also has a win over Michael Johnson. Now, Rashid Magomedov, is he one of the Dagestan fighters?
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
Is Rashid Magomedov, is he one of the Dagestan fighters? Is he from Dagestan?
Dagestan, Russia, yeah.
Okay. So he's one of the ground game wrestling type of guys. I did see that fight, but I don't remember it, to tell you the truth. So, right. Benail, of course, is also a name who's always been there, but still not doing just enough or not the right fight to get him into title contention. But still a very tough fight between both of them. And I think this is a great matchup for the both of them. And a fight, of course, will put them a little closer, though they'll still be a couple of fights away, at least.
Right. So going into the fight, I think Edson is ranked at number 5, while Dariush is ranked at number 9. So you just talked about Edson's fight with Anthony Pettis the last time around, and I thought Barboza was phenomenal in the way he maintained the distance, and he did not let Pettis come inside the range and not get into a grappling match with Anthony Pettis, because Anthony Pettis has legit jiu-jitsu. Many people do not see that, because I think we've even touched about this before. Many people see Anthony as just a striker, but he has legit jiu-jitsu skills as well.
Yeah.
So Barboza was, technically very sound in his fight with Pettis. Now the thing with Barboza is, you take a look at his previous fights, and one thing that you can analyze is he's not that good on the ground. While he's phenomenal in his Muay Thai, because he comes from a Muay Thai background, so obviously he has very, very good kicks, very, very lethal striking. But the biggest hole in his game until this point was his grappling. So he always had to maintain his distance, create separation from his opponents, and make sure that he did not get into a grappling match with people of high jiu-jitsu caliber or high ground grappling caliber. But ever since he started working with Ricardo Almeida, his grappling has definitely improved. But he's going to go up against Dariush, who has black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So now Dariush is no slouch in the striking department as well. I think he has a black belt in Muay Thai under Rafael Cordeiro. So I think his striking is legit as well. But at this point, it's going to be Barboza striking versus Dariush's grappling. So Barboza did, as I said, pretty well in the past against grapplers. You mentioned Gilbert Melendez. Melendez has excellent wrestling, but Barboza managed to stretch him to all the 3 rounds and get the decision victory. So he has shown in the past that he can still hold up his own. He has very good takedown defense, Barboza. So, although his grappling has tremendously improved, I think it's going to eventually come down to Barboza's striking versus Dariush's grappling. And I see Barboza getting a unanimous decision victory once again. As you said, these guys are at least 2 more fights away from getting a title shot. While a win over Dariush would elevate Barboza, should not be enough to get him a title shot, because 155 you still have killers in the top 3 or 4. Other than Conor McGregor, you have some big names who are vying for a title shot.
Yeah. So now moving on to Shogun Rhea, of course, and Gian Villante. Now Shogun Rhea, of course, is 24-10-0. Gian Villante 15-7-0. Now, Shogun Rhea is coming off a win over Corey Anderson and Antonio Nogueira, and losses to OVP and Dan Henderson. Gian Villante has a win over Saperbek Safarov and a loss to Ilir Latifi.
Yeah.
Now, Shogun Rhea, of course, is a big name, a veteran though, who's been around for quite some time. Correct me if I'm wrong, an ex-champ at lightweight as well.
Light heavyweight.
Light heavyweight, yeah. Sorry, I meant light heavyweight. Light heavyweight as well. Huge pedigree. Gian Villante, of course, is on his way up, but he has been around also. He's got 15-7, so that's 22 fights.
Yeah.
So both of them, considerable veterans,
right,
in the game. Now, this is a great matchup, and I'm guessing to keep them going, because we couldn't really see either of them, at least as of now, getting a title shot. So this is one of those fights, if you want to call it a circulation fight or something.
Yeah, Shogun Rhea at this point is in the same bracket as your Rashad Evans, your Tim Kennedys, because he has been in this sport for so long, like your Nogueiras.
But except, unlike Rashad Evans and Tim Kennedy, he has 2 wins right now, his last 2 fights.
Wins, but
over a guy like Corey Anderson, who is, a newer fighter and not, over a veteran as such. He's
right,
one
so
of the
that's
upcoming kids.
Against top contenders.
He's not, but he's an upcoming kid still.
Yeah, Shogun Rhea, he doesn't have those big victories against top contenders. So you have them as the perennial floaters at this point. I think he's ranked number 13. He's still in the top 15. He's going to be a floater for 1 more year or so. So, people like Shogun, people like Nogueira, these are the people that UFC banks on when they go to Brazil, because you need to have that one big legendary name on the card that you need to draw more attention, draw more fans to the fight. So Shogun has always done that. I mean, I remember his Pride days where he was out of this world, but at his age, at this point in his career, I think he's a couple more fights away from calling it a day. As I said, he's pretty similar to Rashad Evans at this point, where he's considered to be a floater and nothing more. The perennial gatekeeper to the up-and-comers, the ones that want to break into the top 15. Now, Gian Vellante, he has been there. He's been in the business for a long time as well. His big last fight, as you mentioned, was against Lil Latifi. So it's going to be interesting because these two fighters are not your top 10 contenders at this point. While Shogun is a floater, Gian Vellante is also, is up and thereabouts. One has really legit wrestling, and Gian, while Shogun has always been known for his amazing jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and Shogun has always been one of the most well-rounded fighters in the light heavyweight division. So it's going to be an interesting fight. I expect Rua to post to a decision victory. I don't see him being able to knock someone out or submit someone at this point, at this stage in his career, against someone who has legit wrestling chops like Gian Vellante. So it's an interesting fight. I don't know. I mean, some people actually said with a win, Shogun might make one last run for a title shot, because 205 is wide open at this point. Other than your Peda is going out, other than your Teixeira, other than your Gustafsson and Teixeira are supposed to fight again. You have Daniel Cormier who's going to fight Anthony Rumble. So who's there in the top 5 to 10? It's wide open. So realistically, with a win over Gian, there's maybe a chance, one last chance for Shogun to make a run for the title. One or two more fights, if he succeeds in getting the victory. Maybe it's a very long shot. Maybe there's one last opportunity, one last big fight for Shogun left.
But full respect to these fighters, they've been giving it their all, and they are names to reckon with. They're not walkovers for any fight,
Right.
Especially like a guy like Shogun. He showed he still has gas in the tank, and Gian Vellante, of course, has. I guess Saparbek Safarov is also one of the Dagestan fighters.
I think so.
Not sure, but again, I would say that was a wrestling victory. I should have, of course, found out a little bit more, but that's what I'm guessing. It was more of a ground game, ground heavy fight.
Maybe. I haven't seen a fight, so I cannot comment.
A lot of maybes today. We should not be having so much maybes between us, but so yeah, I still think it's a really good fight to look forward to. Now, coming to the main event of the evening, Vitor Belfort versus Kevin Gastelum. Now, we've spoken, Vitor, of course, being 25-12-0, and Kevin Gastelum being 14-2-0. We've had extensive discussions, I think, about both of them, of course. Vitor Belfort, of course, being in the same category, especially after USADA came into the picture, being a former, not really being his former self. And he's coming off 2 losses, of course, to Gegard Mousasi and Ronaldo Souza. And, of course, Kevin Gastelum coming off that really good win over Tim Kennedy and Johnny Hendricks. And, of course, a loss. His only 2 losses being to Neil Magny and Tyrone Woodley.
Right.
Now, of course, Vitor before has a lot of wins, and we've spoken extensively about this. We're not sure, at least I'm not, that he's such a big name to beat nowadays, because he seems to be on the downslide, and he comes out pretty strong, but he doesn't seem to be able to keep it up,
Yeah, so no, you're I think all big names, all the top 4-5 guys in the division have gone through Vitor Belfort to reach where they are. So while he's still not that monster that he was while he was on TRT, the testosterone therapy, he still is your perennial gatekeeper. He still is the guy to beat if you want to get into the top 5. So while
And I personally feel that's more a perception though, because of what he used to be. Though,
See, the thing is, like for example, if you have someone like Anderson Silva, you need to beat Anderson Silva to be considered a top 5 fighter in the division. So you have those gatekeepers, quote unquote. Although you cannot.
Anderson Silva. I mean, we'll be pushing it to call him a gatekeeper.
At this point, you can make a case for that. Because we've seen the Derek Brunson fight where everyone knew that Derek Brunson won the fight, but then it was given to Anderson Silva and fights before. So Anderson is not the same guy.
I wouldn't completely agree that he won the fight hands down, but because he was giving too much respect to Anderson, and so I don't think I agreed with that even when we did the post-fight thing. But anyway, let's get back to Vitor. And
yes,
Kevin, before we say something, what's the word out? Anyway, you know what I mean. Because so coming back to Vitor and Kevin, Vitor, of course, like you're saying, is not the guy. Of course, he's a perennial gatekeeper, but not the guy, the fighter he used to be.
Yeah, so it's eventually gonna be Vitor in the first round against Kelvin Gastelum. Because Kelvin Gastelum, we previously talked about how legit striking that he has. He has improved tremendously in his striking department, much like Ryan Bader. I remember Bader not being that good on his feet, but then he improved, and I can say the same thing about Kelvin Gastelum. And he has, as we all know, legit wrestling chops. Once he closed the distance with Tim Kennedy, he pressured Tim Kennedy. You saw in those clinches, Kennedy had no answer to Vitor's pressure. To Kelvin's pressure. So it's going to be an interesting fight, especially because Gastelum, the only thing that he needs to do against someone like Vitor is to take him to the ground. Because, legit wrestling chops, and, he is purple. I think he has purple belt under Eddie Bravo as well in Jiu-Jitsu. So with those credentials, once he takes someone like Vitor to the ground, who quickly gasses out, Vitor, look at the past 2 or 3 fights of Vitor's. First round, comes out aggressively, throws a couple of combinations, tires himself out. Then it's easy pickings for his opponents once he goes into the second round. So again, someone like Kelvin Gastelum, who thrives on the pressure fighting, who thrives on taking his opponents to the ground and grinding them. I think it's going to be I won't say easy pickings, but all Kelvin has to do is to avoid Vitor's pressure, sustain the first aggressiveness that Vitor throws with his combinations when the round starts. As soon as Vitor fades, I easily see Kelvin, taking Vitor to the ground and just either finishing him with a ground and pound or submitting him.
Yeah. So you just mentioned, now moving on from Fortaleza, you just mentioned Eddie Bravo, so that brought to mind the recent run-in he had with Michael Bisping, which I found pretty hilarious. I don't know if we can air that video. I've seen other people airing it, but we'll see if we can air that video, share it from YouTube. It was pretty hilarious because Michael Bisping, people are saying, was apparently drunk. Of course, he's English. He likes to drink. He says so himself. Like that's a good excuse. I'm English. So he was going after Eddie for something Eddie said, and Eddie was like, I was paying you a compliment. I tried to, I was watching your back. What the hell are you talking about? So, and then he seemed to quieten down a bit and shake hands and everything.
Fuck off! I'm with you, man. I work to my face every fucking day. Every fucking day I look at you. People look at me, people pictures. I don't look at pictures.
Michael!
Yeah?
Stop.
No. What are you talking about? No idea what you're talking about.
I don't.
No, you
I'm
don't.
just assuming.
Yeah, assume all you
Hey,
want.
I'm trying to fucking give you props.
Yeah,
I'm trying to give you props.
I know you are.
Man, what is fucking I'm trying to give you props.
I know.
I'm trying to give you props. I ain't trying to talk shit. I got your back every time, man. So don't turn it around, man.
And even at the press conference, we saw really aggressive Michael Bisping, who again may have been, who are we to say, have had a few drinks. At least George St. Pierre seemed to think so. GSP seemed to think so, and he kept going on about it, and saying that he was going to be embarrassed by what he was saying. Don't embarrass yourself by what you're saying. And, so that is a fight I'm really looking forward to. I think everybody is waiting for Michael Bisping to be shut up. And recently, Chris Weidman also said that look at the fights that he's taking up and see the guys I beat. He, of course, beat somebody. It was a revenge fight with Dan Henderson. Now, full respect to Dan Henderson. Dan Henderson still almost repeated the knockout of UFC 100.
A lot of people even thought Dan Henderson won the fight.
Won the fight, exactly. It's just a lot of people still felt he won the fight, including us. And he almost pulled it off. So full, respect to him. And then, of course, now what Chris Weidman is saying, he's facing up to somebody who hasn't been in the ring for 3 years. So George St. Pierre is very, very confident about his skills still coming back into the ring. And of course, he's George St. Pierre.
Right. See, that's I think the biggest difference between someone like Tyron Woodley and someone like Michael Bisping. Tyron Woodley, I won't say he takes the easy fights, but he takes the easy routes to victory. Michael Bisping doesn't. When you see Michael Bisping, you know that he's going to throw bombs. Either he's going to get tagged or he's going to tag someone.
Yeah.
He comes in there to fight. I mean, yeah, you can say Michael Bisping is avoiding, Yoel Romero is avoiding this guy. You have Jacare Souza.
Yeah, but which has been said, it's the UFC which makes the fights.
But the thing is, as a champion, and this is something that we even discussed before, as a champion, many people did not understand the leverage a belt gives to a champion. Now they do. Now they do what a belt brings to the table in terms of negotiations or contract negotiations. So I think the champions are becoming much more clever after seeing Conor McGregor. McGregor has picked his opponents. You have someone like Tyron Woodley who wanted to pick his opponents. You have Michael Bisping picking his opponents. So yeah, UFC, in the end, it's the matchmaker that makes the fight. But when it comes to the negotiation of it, I think the champions do have a big say now. But saying that, as I said, there's a major difference between what Tyron Woodley is doing and what Bisping is doing. Bisping, when you see him, he's going to go in there and get into a fight. He's not going to, go into cruise control and probably take the easy way out. He's just going to go in there and he's going to
his whole style has evolved into, a very aggressive, his movement and everything. He's not just in there calm and waiting to counter. He's there to bring it, and full respect to him for that. He's there to fight,
Right.
And like we saw in the Dan Henderson fight recently, he got back up,
Right. And so that's the thing. I mean, they say styles make fights, and with Michael Bisping's style, so if I was UFC, and if people ask me why you're picking George St. Pierre, I can legitimately give a reason depending upon their styles. Every fan would want to see how a legit ground guy would do against a legit stand-up guy. Now, GSP has crisp combinations, always had good boxing, but he was never the knockout artist, that the other guys were. And when you talk about Bisping, he has that legit one-punch knockout power, and he can drop guys, he can finish them with TKOs. So styles do make fights, and that's where I think Bisping has earned at least the right to call out his fights, while Tyron Woodley, after we've seen what happened, still hasn't.
Yeah, well, it would be interesting to see who Tyron faces. Of course, it's not interesting. I mean, it's quite clear that he needs to face the winner of Damian Maia, Jorge Masvidal, which will again be a very interesting fight. And either winners would be a very interesting matchup with Tyron. I think he's going to actually have to fight them, because Damian Maia is, of course, we all know what he's going to try and do. And even Jorge Masvidal, with his ground and stand-up game, and as we saw recently against Donald Cerrone, he's a very deceptive fighter.
He is, and if you ask me, Masvidal is probably the best boxer in the UFC right now.
Yeah.
He is the throwback version of what BJ Penn was many years ago, with his combinations, with the manner in which he just slides in, tags people. So yeah, I mean, the technique that Masvidal has on the feet is phenomenal. So as you said, either ways, either it's Maya or it's Masvidal, Woodley's going to have a tough time.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be a great fight. And, you know, like we said, both guys are not really counter guys. They bring it, you know.
Right.
And Masvidal has a very strong chin as well.
Yes, it does.
You know, so that we will we'll look forward to that fight. Hopefully, we can have Jorge Masvidal back on the show before his Damian Maia fight, and it's really good to see him, on a lot of MMA shows and everything now, and finally getting his due, because he's a great guy. We've spoken to him twice. So we look forward to these fights. Of course, coming back this weekend, it is Fortaleza in Brazil, and we've spoken about the 4 top fights, according to us, what will be the 4 top fights. And that's it for today. Anything else, Akhilesh?
No, I think we discussed everything under the sun.
Okay, great. And so there it is, Fortaleza, Brazil, coming up. And some really interesting cards coming up this year with the Michael Bisping GSP fight, Jorge Masvidal, Damian Maia, and I have to say UFC 211 is looking like the best card this year. We've already spoken about it on our website, www.mmaindia.com. Go and subscribe to our YouTube channel, MMA India Show. Thank you for watching us today, and goodbye.